my fellow readers. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 great fantasy reads that are coming this fall. So all of these books are books that I got. They're not really advanced reader copies because they were advanced audio copies from NetGalley, which I will leave the link down below. I can't remember if you have to have any credentials in order to join NetGalley. Sometimes you'll get pre-approval for things if you have other credentials, like being a librarian. But I think anybody can join NetGalley, and then you'll get Galley Reads, the advanced reader copies or ARCs. And it's super fun. I often can't do the advanced reader copies because I run out of time to read them since I'm so engrossed in other books. But in this case, I tried the new system, which is you get advanced audiobooks to complete. And they're done with a synthetic voice. What I like about that is that it does not hinder me in any way from wanting to get either the book or the audiobook later on, because I would want a better production of the book. The synthetic voice is fine to listen to, but it can sound awkward at times and like a little stilted with some of the words because it's a synthetic voice. It doesn't have the nuance that a normal human voice would have, and it doesn't have the capabilities that an actor who actually performs the audiobook will have. So while it was great that I was able to finish these advanced reader copies and actually get an early opinion on them, I also feel like I can't wait to hear these produced professionally, if that makes sense, and also just buy the physical copy of the book. So let me tell you what they were. The first book that I finished from the 3 is Before We Disappear, and this is by Sean David Hutchinson, who wrote We Are the Ants, which I absolutely love, and there's been many other books as well. I actually really love Sean David Hutchinson. And this was kind of a new style, I guess, for me from him. So this book, how to explain it? It's historical fantasy, and it's set during one of the World's Fairs. I'm thinking, was it Seattle? I'm gonna get the place wrong now. But it's set during an early World's Fair. I think it's 1909, and from the appearance, there are 2 rival magicians who are trying to get like top billing at the fair. One of whom is already well known, Evangeline. She's an established professional. She can do with her assistant like many tricks, and if I'm remembering correctly, like she does a lot of mental work as well. I might be getting that wrong. So she's more established and was like invited to perform at the fair. Meanwhile, the rival is a newcomer. Like, I think it was Laszlo. Is his performing name is Laszlo. And he's kind of trying to steal the spotlight from Evangeline. And he has this amazing performance, where he wraps his apprentice up, and then poof, like magic, it becomes a beautiful girl instead of his normal assistant. So he's like quickly making waves and moving up the ladder of the performers at the World's Fair. So he starts off like just kind of doing it on his own without there being a stage, and then he gets invited to actually have like a stage performance. So there they are, these 2 rivals, but that is not actually the main story. So working for those rivals are their assistants, and their assistants meet, and they feel like an instant connection to one another. Evangeline's assistant, Jack, he's just an interesting character. He has kind of like a side business at the same time as helping her, where he's essentially bootlegging. He's bringing in like alcohol into the fair and making money. He's doing whatever he can to make his cash. But he was kind of rescued by Evangeline, so he feels this obligation to work for her and do whatever she requests. Even though there's a bit of him that doesn't always feel comfortable with the relationship or how things are laid out, essentially he's very loyal to her. On the other side of the fair, under Laszlo, we discover there's a very dark story happening there. So Laszlo's real name is Teddy, and years ago, Teddy kidnapped a young boy who is now his assistant, Wilhelm, and has been using him in his crooked ways. So prior to this World's Fair, they've been stealing and doing a lot of criminal activity. And now Will is trying to understand why Teddy is trying to kind of go professional, whether he actually wants to have a professional act or what the bigger scheme is that he's trying to play. And we also learn that Will has actual powers, and Will can transport himself to other places. So the big act that Teddy, aka Laszlo, came up with, which I think is like called the butterfly or the metamorphosis. I think it's metamorphosis, because I think they used that for their term. Anyway, is actually Will using his magical abilities to disappear and bring in the assistant. And the female assistant, I should say. So if it, you know, that part of being used, all right, whatever. But we discover that really Teddy is very abusive to Will. He keeps him chained to his bed so that Will cannot run away. And it appears as though iron blocks Will's magical ability. And we also know that Will sort of has a reliance on Teddy because Will believes he has this illness that Teddy is giving him medicine for. So he's worried if he just finds some way to leave Teddy that he'll get sick and not be able to survive anyway. So there's a lot of manipulation and darkness going on that side. And when Jack has a later run-in with Will and he comes to find this out, it's more about how can I get Will out of this situation. Like, he should not be chained up. He should not be locked up. He should be able to have his own life, and he's being manipulated and used for criminal activity. And so that's probably where the story goes. Like, how can they get out of this? Can they free Will? What is the story with Will? I didn't look to see whether this is going to be like book one of a series, but it feels very much like a book one. Like, you want more to happen after this book is complete. Not that it has to happen. This part of the story is complete, but there's more that I would want to know about Will and his past that you don't get at this point. But either way, I'm looking forward to this read. I think this, along with the other books, comes out in November. So this will be a fall/winter read, and I cannot wait for it. I'm really looking forward to this one. It also has an amazing cover, and I hope that it keeps that cover. I just find like the artwork aesthetically pleasing. I like it. So that was the first book that I previewed. The second one is actually a middle grade read called Gussy. And Gussy is the story of the young girl, Gussy, and her grandfather figure. He's not her biological grandfather. He's someone that took her in. And he kind of is in charge of protecting the village that they live in. So there are these rituals that they have to go through in order to keep the village safe. And Gussy is sort of like his apprentice. She does have magical abilities too. So she has learned the rituals to keep the town safe. And they must do this in order to keep out Doom, the bad force that threatens the village. At the start of the book, they get a rider in who has a message for the grandfather that something bad is happening in another location, and they've requested his help. So he decides that he's going to leave and go to the other place to help them out. And he leaves Gussy in charge of continuing the rituals and keeping the town safe. Which seems all well and good because Gussy is used to doing it, and she's a little trepidatious because I think there's just the certain time period where it usually gets bad is coming up. And so she's kind of like, doesn't really want him to leave, but at the same time, she has been trained by him, so she's going to try her best. Within like the first night or two of him leaving, she actually breaks one of the rules, which is usually if the gates are shut at night, you are not supposed to open the gates up for anything or anyone. However, upon that night where it was like stormy and it's bad, there's a young girl who asks for help at the gate, and she's not going to make it if they don't let her in. So Gussy makes the decision to let the girl in, and then she doesn't tell anyone because that's against the rules. But shortly after the young girl gets there, townspeople start becoming possessed bit by bit, and Gussy has to go and try to exorcise them and keep the evil at bay. And so the story really becomes, okay, is this young girl the villain? Is she causing all this bad stuff to happen? What's going on in this town? Can they defeat the evil force? What's happening? This was fun. Like, it was definitely magical. There are sweet elements, but also there's a lot of creepy elements. And I loved that part of it. Like, the possession scenes are so creepy. But this is middle grade, so it's safe to read from a younger age up. So it doesn't get like overly gory or anything. It's just creepy. It's very atmospheric, and I liked that. Again, this is one I would recommend this one, and it's coming out this fall, and pick it up. It's good. The third, almost put two, but the third fantasy book that I previewed is the next book by Rebecca Ross, and I was so excited to see this one on there because I've loved Rebecca Ross's other works. She did the Queen's Rising duology and the Sisters of Sword and Song, I think, if I'm getting that correctly, which I also really loved and did the review on. So this upcoming novel, at least at this point, is called Dreams Lie Beneath, and I just found this one so cool. This might end up being like my favorite of hers. So it essentially tells the story of our main character, Clementine, who she is currently like apprenticing for her father, and their job is kind of a protector of their town, their area. But how it works is they go and they record different dreams, because at certain times the dreams will become real and they have to prevent bad things from happening because of the dream, if that makes sense. Like if somebody had a nightmare where somebody was murdered, that could potentially happen. So then if they recognized that dream, they would prevent that from happening, if that makes sense. It's actually really cool. It's a really cool premise. So they record the dreams, and then they'll have like a warning should the dream become real about what's going to happen and what actions they should take. And also in this land, there is this folklore. There's a story that's been told that comes into play later as well. What happens in this story, right off the bat, pretty much, not like immediate, but after a little bit of setup and world building, there are these two brothers who come to town, and they're seeking out Clementine's father. And the reason that they're looking for him is that people can come in and challenge the town protector. I'm just going to call him the town protector. I don't remember if they have an official title. They can challenge them, and if they beat them, they take over the position to protect the town, and that other person is without a job, essentially. So these two brothers come into town and they're going to challenge Clementine's father. And they do. And Clementine's really upset about this whole situation because her father has been ill and she just thinks this is a terrible time for this to be happening. And she tries to do all that she can to prevent this from happening, but then also to keep them from winning. But it doesn't work out. So her father loses the job and they have to leave their home. It's going to be taken by the two brothers. They go to live with Clementine's mom, so it's not like they weren't completely destitute. But Clementine is so upset by this that she comes up with a plan to get revenge on the brothers. And pretty quickly, one of the brothers is looking for an apprentice, slash who will become the partner. So Clementine disguises herself with the help of a friend that I don't want to get into the story too much, but she disguises herself as somebody else and goes to audition. I guess audition would be the closest thing. Apply, but it is more like an audition than just an application, for the role of being his partner slash apprentice. So then a big chunk of the book is the two of them getting to know one another. Clementine is still looking for like dirt on them that she can use to take the family down so that she can get back into that role. But also feelings start to develop. And as I said, there's a background story, a folklore for the whole town, and it's part of like why they have to do the dream thing and how this is all set up in the magic system. And a big chunk of it becomes, is this a real story? And what do they have to do to really overcome what's been happening? I don't know. The whole thing is just interesting. It has an interesting premise, it has an interesting world. I like the magic system. I love the romantic interactions that start to occur in the story. It's just really good. And I look forward to owning this one because I do have the other books from Rebecca Ross, and I'm probably going to keep getting her works because so far I've really, really liked them. I think she has good, compelling, strong characters that I get really into, and in this case, a very interesting magic system and world. So, yes. These are 3 great fantasy reads, 2 of which are YA, 1 of which is the middle grade, that I would recommend for this fall. So look for them. I think November is their expected date. Now, a lot of things have been pushed in the publication world due to the bad stuff that happened in the world. So I don't know for sure that they will keep their current release dates, but I do believe they're expected to be published this November. So keep an eye out for these 3. I would highly recommend all of them. I thought they were all solid, enjoyable reads. My favorite probably was the Rebecca Ross one, but they're all good. That's it for this video. Until next time.